tunnels going straight. They go maybe several hundred kilometers out into space. And you know what circles around the Earth about 400 kilometers above us? The International Space Station.
The European Space Agency contacted the Norwegian Defence Research Establishment and gave them the opportunity to mount an AIS receiver on board the space station to test out this technology from space. All our calculations indicated that this should work, but we really did not know before we switched on the receiver on the space station. 1st of June 2010, the system was turned on.
The switch was flipped and the light came on, and we were actually able to get the first data in. Yes, the instrument works.
We all got very excited.
And suddenly we could see a whole world full of ship data. It was I would say, a quantum leap really in our ability to look at global ship traffic.
It's like a blind man starting to see.
Yeah, it was a huge relief and great satisfaction to see.
So this brought a whole new dimension to the monitoring of ship traffic on the open oceans.
Nobody knew how many ships really are out there at any given time, and suddenly we had, if not the complete picture, then almost the complete picture.
On a typical day, the space station is observing about 30,000 ships out on the open ocean.
I was kind of overwhelmed, I guess, by the response that's got. The space station really is an excellent lab for testing this type of technology.
This project demonstrates that the International Space Station is not just for science and astronauts, but it really benefits the whole mankind with down-to-earth applications.
Based on the AIS, we had another vessels in the area that we contacted who continued to the area, and they searched together with the helicopters. Nobody expected to find anybody surviving in that conditions. They actually spotted one man in the sea.
After floating in the North Atlantic Ocean for 4 hours, I was finally rescued.
Thanks to AIS data and AIS data from the space station, this lone survivor was rescued. An absolutely happy ending for him.
And luckily for technology that made something that was basically impossible to survive possible.
What happens if you wake up in the morning and you understand the state of the world as it is right now?
What could that data enable? How could people make smarter decisions? How could, for example, a farmer get better yield on his or her crops? How could somebody help disaster response? How can we use satellites to help humanity? That in many ways was the underlying thesis of doing Planet Labs, was to get data into the hands of people that could enable us to make smarter responses to that.
Planet Labs set out with the mission to photograph the entire Earth every day. And they thought, how are we going to do this? They said, let's build our own satellite.
Commercial imaging satellites, they're very large. They are very expensive. We took a different approach.
By making them really small, we can launch lots of them, and by launching lots of them, we can cover this, to get to this mission of imaging the whole Earth every day.
If we can do that, then we can literally change the way that we see the world.
And they called it the Dove. It's about the size of a loaf of bread.
Our doves are basically mainly a big camera with a telescope looking down to take pictures of the Earth. We initially developed the first Dove satellite in our garage. So we kept on iterating the Dove design, we made it better and better, and eventually we put our first one into space. We had no idea what the quality would be like.
I mean, we didn't know if it was going to work.
But we got an image down and it was so beautiful that we knew at that point we could make this technology work.
wow, we can really do this and we can achieve this mission, which is something that is really needed for us to understand global change.
So we had done a couple of demonstration satellites, but the next steps we wanted to do was to scale it up, to test the first fleets of satellites.
But what made that possible was actually access to space.
So here's the problem, that in order to take pictures of the entire Earth every day, you're going to need more than 1 or 2 satellites. You're going to need a whole lot of satellites, and you're going to need to be able to deploy them really fast. And really, there's only one obvious choice on how to deploy that, and that's the International Space Station.
There was no other platform in the world in order to get access to space of that fashion in that time period than the International Space Station.
NanoRacks is our key partner with NASA.
At NanoRacks, we understood Planet Lab's vision, and we knew that we could help. We worked together to figure out what was going to be the best way to get as many satellites as possible, and we basically developed a new platform. It goes out of the GIM airlock, it's picked up by a robotic arm, pointed out into space, and it fires these little satellites off of the space station.
They were able to secure 28 of our satellites to be launched from the International Space Station, and that was known as Flock 1, our first constellation.
This opened up the whole world to satellite developers, people that could put things into orbit fast.
We now deploy these on a regular basis from the International Space Station. And now today, we're able to operate the largest fleet of Earth imaging satellites in human history.
And none of that would have been possible without the International Space Station.
The International Space Station does enable young, small companies like ourselves to get going in space.
The ISS provides a lot of opportunities for commercial companies to test and find where the market in space is going to be.
And so what we're seeing today is a proliferation of new ideas and new concepts. It's almost like it's a renaissance of what's happening in space. Buckle up and strap down, because this is going to be a rocket for all of us in the global community to be part of.
The first pictures now coming in from Puerto Rico after taking a direct hit. Hurricane Maria slamming into the island. One official saying the island is destroyed.
Hours with winds and rain, and didn't stop.
Power lines are down. Streets are impassable. Many roads are flooded.
High winds uprooting trees, overturning cars, and turning buildings into piles of twisted metal.
It is something that will change Puerto Rico forever.
We had no water, no food, no gasoline, no communication at all.
Not knowing where my next meal will come from, it hasn't been easy.
After Hurricane Maria, everything was gray, all the plants were dead. Hurricane Maria took the color away from us.
I am sure that these children will not be the same. They will not be the same. They are still struggling and trying to recover from this.
My name is Joe Acaba. I'm a NASA astronaut of Puerto Rican descent. I was about a week into my mission on the International Space Station. Hurricane Maria was forming up, and from there, if you looked out the window, Maria took up a big chunk of what we could see. It was going to cover the entire island. After the hurricane, their power grid was pretty much taken out. You just couldn't see the island anymore. The hurricane, I think, had a huge impact on, the island as a whole, but especially the kids.
Joe Acaba was our hero, and we need something positive. The students need something positive.
We wanted to pull through, forget all that happened, and lift up our spirits and lift off the island.
So I knew I couldn't do much from up on the International Space Station, but I did want to connect with the students to show them that there is hope and that there are people out there that care about them.
NASA has the STEM station, which allows the students and teachers to talk to the astronaut in the space station.
It's making that connection so that maybe, they become more interested and we can inspire them more to study the STEM fields.
So we were able to establish and coordinate with NASA one of these video conferences. Thousands of students from different parts of the island watching the video conference with the space station talking to Joe.
This is Joe aboard the International Space Station. I have you loud and clear. How do you compare?
What is the most impressive view? How did Puerto Rico look after Huracán
allowed to visit?
What is the minimum number of...
It was awesome because, as soon as it came up, you could hear people clapping, people were excited. So even though I couldn't see them, I could feel them, and that was pretty neat.
It was amazing. He called from the International Space Station to see how Puerto Rico was doing, and that means a lot for us, a lot.
In May of 2018, I was able to go back to the island, my first time since the hurricane. It was a great opportunity to get out and kind of come full circle with those students, to go and see them in person and, kind of reiterate how important they are, and just to give them a little bit more hope because there's still a long way to go on the island.
He's a hero for us. Kids love him, and everybody loves him here. Joe Acaba is the role model that we need at this time.
I want to be like him. I want to go far, and I want to be an example for little kids when I'm older.
Not only is the International Space Station a great tool for scientific research and exploration, but for students from Puerto Rico in particular, I think that having that video conference with them, it did provide some hope. It did provide some inspiration. And so it's just one of the benefits that we get from the International Space Station.
In order to support International Space Station, we're constantly having to build new hardware to send to space, but as well, we need to make training hardware on the ground. So we ask ourselves, what if we got high school students to build us some training hardware and get them out of the textbook, get them some hands-on lessons to work with, and by doing that, we'll be inspiring the next generation of students. So that's when we decided to create Hunch. Hunch goes to the local high schools, partners with the high schools, and gives these students opportunities to design, build hardware that'll fly in space or be used for training hardware on the ground. Students did the design and engineering, the CAD drafting, the 3D print prototyping, the machining, the procurement of the hardware. All this done by high school students to get this article to fly in space. From the quality perspective, the students have exceeded all of our expectations. The hardware we're getting in is top-notch.
This program actually helps them focus into the engineering of the STEM fields.
I've been teaching for 23 years. I've never seen anything that even remotely compares to having the type of impact on students that Hunch has had. Absolutely phenomenal.
Working with the Hunch program, we fabricated training hardware for the ISS.
I created and designed interactive simulations.
We're making a Mexican paella and hopefully gets chosen to go to the International Space Station.
From the Hunch program, I've learned how to use AutoCAD.
We're learning a lot of teamwork.
I've definitely gained some communication skills.
We're learning more about food science, technology, but everything basically doing this.
It gives them a confidence that I don't think they would have had to that level before this.
Maybe I would actually be able to be an engineer. So it was never something that I'd thought that much about. And then I was working on this stuff that went to space, and I couldn't think of anything more exciting. And I still can't.
It's a pretty cool thing to be able to tell other people or family when you go visit that I work with NASA programs.
I mean, I told everybody, like literally everybody.
We have an opportunity here for them that is unbelievable.
It's kind of like getting a master's at age 16.
They truly have moved on to a level they wouldn't have approached or wouldn't reach, I believe, without this program and without the International Space Station.
Before the Hunch program, I really was just a C student with no direction in my life. And since then, I've been on the Dean's List for the past 4 years and will be transferring to pursue mechanical engineering.
It really helped me find my passion for aerospace. The Hunch program gave me my career.
The impact on their lives has been amazing. They're more successful, they're more driven, they're more determined. They know